All right, welcome everybody. We have Rick Dunn on the line with us today. How are you today, Rick?
I'm so good, man. How you doing?
I'm doing good. So we have an exciting thing to talk about today. The big thing in all of recruiting is really the recruiting and sales process. And Rick has done an exceptional job with it out of all my clients. We started, we think in October in Binghamton, New York, which anybody that's done anything in New York knows that New York's not the easiest area. But even still, we were able to send Rick 50 leads, which was less than we expected, maybe more than he expected. And so far, he's been able to hire 10, although he's still working some of those leads. So, Rick, what I want to ask you today is some people will pick up the phone. They don't feel like they're able to get a hold of the leads. They're not able to get the leads into First Advantage. You're pushing almost everyone you talk to into First Advantage. So what's that conversation look like? What's the phone call look like? What's your process look like? Walk us through that.
It certainly builds with time, and there's a comfortability that you get with recruiting for FedEx drivers. And those early days, I didn't know what I was talking about. Bumbling through, there was terms that I just wasn't familiar with in the market. Drop and hook, no touch, bump and docks. Those are things that a lot of, truck drivers all get it, but when you're recruiting, you pick up on it over the years. So obviously the success that I've had is from doing it consistently now in many places for many runs. I've hired certainly in the hundreds. I bet you I'm over, the 4-digit mark at this point, just in terms of drivers that I've hired for myself or other companies. And there's a comfortability that comes with it. And the first thing I like to think about is, what's the job? What is the actual job? It's not a driver for FedEx that's pulling doubles. It is a home daily dedicated run. It's a team run that's home weekends. It's a very specific. And then I look at the rest of the market and I say, okay, who am I competing against? There's certain markets that I recruit out of where my competition for home daily runs is almost minimal. And I just happen to know that market. Then there's other places like, Woodbridge, New York City, where I'm competing against lots of people with good driving jobs, home daily. And how do I separate the FedEx job away from the competition? I want to put FedEx on a pedestal, whether it's a team run, even if it's an unassigned run or a wild run. You have to be able to separate that job from everything else that's in that particular market.
Okay, very cool. How do you have any specific methods of finding out what is your competition in a certain market, or have you just been in those markets for long enough that you just know?
Google. I'll do Google CDL jobs in this area, or wherever it is. Is it a big city? Is it a small market? How close is it to, a major highway? If you look at the East Coast, you got 95, you got 81. The trucks are constantly driving up and down. And I'll look and see where it is my competition is. And then once I start recruiting those leads, I'll ask them, where are you working for right now? Oh, you're home daily? Well, what's the job that you're doing? Are you doing drop and hook, no touch? Are you bumping a dock, having to wait to get unloaded by a lumper that's going to take 4 hours to unload you? Are you making deliveries? A lot of home daily jobs, you're making deliveries. A driver is driving a semi truck through the streets of Philadelphia, let's say, stopping the truck, having to figure out where to park that thing, definitely getting a ticket, people honking, and they're having to unload, cases of beer just to do it again several times. That's not a driving job that I think drivers appreciate, but they'll do it to get them home every day, especially the younger guys, that newer generation of drivers that don't have that old school mentality, the old school trucker hitting the road and, the romanticism of driving the country, Route 66, like those days don't seem to be, that's not really a thing anymore for the younger drivers. But for the older guys, a lot of times you can sell them on that idea.
Okay, very interesting. And so it sounds like depending on the market you're recruiting in, then you're going to highlight different parts of your FedEx job depending on what's going to make it the most unique, stand out the most from the other jobs in that market.
100%. Yes. How is your particular FedEx job you're recruiting for different than everyone else's? There's certain markets, you're not the only FedEx contractor calling these guys, especially hubs that have been saturated with contractors. Let's be honest, some not on the up and up that have not treated the local community of CDL drivers very well over the years. And you're having to battle against that lots of times. So what separates you from A, the rest of the trucking market, and B, what separates you from the other FedEx contractors who are probably calling that area too, or have already called them and turned them off to driving doubles for FedEx?
Yeah, because they're automatically going to lump you into, they don't understand the FedEx business model. They don't understand that Rick is an owner and Joe's an owner and Sam's an owner, right? They just think that you guys are all, maybe they think you're managers and you run the same system, but.
Yes. How do I separate myself from every other contractor who's calling them, in addition to the other trucking companies?
Yeah. And what are some of the common things that you do to separate yourself from other companies outside of FedEx? I know you've mentioned home time, you mentioned drop and hook. What are some other things that really separate the FedEx job from outside companies?
You want to engage that driver, right? It's a conversation and it's not reading off of a script. And you start there. But the first thing is you know the job and you talk through the job. Now, I think maybe I'm probably pretty good with it because I talk about FedEx for 19 hours a day right now. Like I'm pretty good at talking through this stuff. But you have to know the job and know what a driver is looking for. And the first thing I ask the driver is, what do you want? You applied for a team job with me, an unassigned, I'm running a wild team, but what do you want? Oh, I want to be home every day. Well, you know what you applied for. What do you want? It's the first question I'm asking. How can I give this driver exactly what they want? Obviously, everyone wants money. I get it. Everyone wants the most amount of money. Every driver wants $1.30 a mile. And unfortunately, we just don't have the ability to pay that. So we can't do that. So I don't want to be at the top of the range of what people are paying, and I certainly don't want to be at the bottom of the range. There's that middle ground. And as FedEx contractors, that payroll has gone out of control, and that's a soapbox for another time. But money-wise is most important, let's be honest, and I want to make sure I get that there. I'm not dancing around the issue. Hey, in this market, I'm paying 55 cents a mile. In this market, I'm paying 70 cents a mile for this job. And once I know they're okay with that financial aspect, it's okay. Well, what do you want to do? I'd really like to be home every day. Okay, I have a job that can do that. Got a great run for you. It's running from Atlanta to Charlotte every day and back. I just say that I want to say it's 500 and something miles. It's a dedicated run. You'll leave at 7 a.m. barring anything crazy, this is trucking, you'll be back by 5 p.m., go home, have dinner with your family, be back the next day, phenomenal run. If you have that type of dedicated solo AM run, recruiting should be very simple. And that's why as we're looking at valuing these runs, that run's can be worth considerably more than that PM run, that's doing local turns in a particular market where drivers having to do lots of connects and disconnects. So I'm getting it out there. I'm telling the good about the job, and I'm also telling them the bad, because I'm not trying to process somebody through First Advantage just for them to be like, oh, whoa, I didn't know this was the case. And that's a problem that a lot of the people that I kind of have to train it out of them. I'm so hungry that I need drivers so bad that I'm willing to kind of not highlight the negative aspects or the would-be negative aspects of what that job could be, and not give them a whole transparent picture of what that particular FedEx run is going to look like for them. And I'm going to process them. I'm going to start training them just for them to not, oh, this isn't for me. Well, wish we could have figured that out ahead of time. So I don't want to waste my time, my team's time with someone who is never going to work out in the first place. So brutal honesty.
Oh, there you go. And when so the last example you gave was for a dedicated AM run. You can be very specific with, you're going to leave at 7, you're going to get back at 3, or whatever the case is. If you're doing an unassigned run, recruiting for an unassigned run, How do you handle that? Are you a little bit more ambiguous, or do you just know enough? Do you have
No,
experience
no,
to make?
because the unassigned run, it gets a bad rap. I make a joke that like my partner Darius and I, everything good that we have in life came off the unassigned run. Like we were broke when we started in FedEx. We didn't have any money to buy runs. We're just taking whatever we could. And we just got really comfortable with running unassigned runs. And if you look at a market, what does an unassigned run do? Pick a market, preferably on the East. I'm a little more familiar. Pick a hub.
With Atlanta.
God, this is softball. We didn't plan that.
We didn't plan that.
Yeah,
You could pick a different one if you need to.
say Ellenwood, right?
Okay.
Ellenwood is 303. It's the Metro Atlanta market. And what do those nighttime guys do for the unassigned board? They do the exact same runs that the dedicated runs do, right? You're running there's monster Jacksonville runs. They want you to do turns to Albany, turns to Athens. You're going into Alabama in certain cases. Maybe you get a Charlotte every now and then. Rarely they'll ask you to do a lay 10 at night, but all of those runs exist on the dedicated board. They just don't have the freight. You're just covering the excess for them. So that's what I'm kind of telling the drivers, like, look, you're going to be doing 10, 15 runs max. The beauty of this is, you want to spin it in a way without, you never want to lie to them, but say, hey, you're going to get that, you're still going to have consistency. Your start time is going to be relatively the same. There's people who say, they're going to start me anywhere from 5 o'clock to 1 a.m. Not necessarily. You want to, there's a way to negotiate those runs as you're interacting with dispatchers. Say, hey, this guy started at 1 last night. He's not going to have the hours. Can I get something earlier tonight? And having a good communication with, dispatchers of that. But I want to highlight the fact that it's unassigned. You're not doing the same thing every day, but you're only going to a handful of locations. You're going to get really good and really familiar with those locations. And hey, if we're successful with this, give it a couple months, maybe even a couple years, but eventually you're going to be on a dedicated run, because that's the game we play as contractors. You get your points, you upgrade your runs, you're patient, good things happen, stay safe. So that's what I'm telling them about what the expectations of the run are. But who are you recruiting for that run? I'm looking for that guy who might be 14 to 16 months out of school, running for JB Hunt, Warner, XPO, and specifically that Atlanta market. Jobs where I know they're not making a ton of money and they're out. Hey, I'll get you home every day. Hey, Mr. Driver, you go out for 2-3 weeks at a time and you come home for a weekend. Maybe they get you home. What if I could have you home every day and I'm going to have you off on the weekends? Is that something you'd be interested in? And then for me, I'm probably always going to pay a little more on the unassigned runs, just as an incentive for those guys to run, include bonuses. Financially, you have to get them excited about their run, but I'm not going for the guy who has that dedicated AM run to Charlotte that we just talked about. That's got nice consistent schedule and saying, hey man, you want to go run the unassigned nighttime board? No, of course not, right? Like, so who are you recruiting for that job? Look for the right guy. You got people running team, take them off the team, not FedEx teams. We don't want to do that, but find somebody running team elsewhere. So know how to source your leads and kind of file through those potential drivers and kind of know what you're looking for and who's going to be the right person for that job.
Oh, interesting. Very interesting.
Cut me off. I can talk about this like all day long. So just cut me off.
Oh, this is great. Another question. I have some clients that will tell me that they're talking to 10 people, let's say, but they can't get anyone to start the First Advantage application or to actually fill out the First Advantage application because it's a little difficult. How do you handle, like, it comes time to the end of the conversation, it's time to make the call to action to fill out the full application. What are you saying to them? What steps do you take to make sure they actually follow through and actually go through to that next step?
Hey, Mr. Driver, when are you going to be in a safe place to fill out this application? Look, there's a couple things in here that I just want to make sure we get through correctly so I can get you through the process quickly enough. I'm going to be on the phone with you while you're filling out that application. It might take 30 minutes out of my day or somebody on my team's day, but I'm going to walk them through. Hey, they're going to have a question. Hey, this isn't, what do I put here? put this down. This is what we want you to put. 3 years experience, have to put down specifics, the right phone numbers in there. What else is on there? If they have specific incidents in the past, putting it down there. But I want to extend that initial conversation. Them doing the application is part of that call. It's not two separate transactions. It's that phone call. And if it's a really good call and I want to process them all the way through, I don't like the idea, and I'll do it sometimes, of just sending out an application, hope they fill it out, but if it's a good enough conversation and no one want that driver, it's part of that conversation. Hey man, you get a good place to fill this application. Look, it'll take you 15 minutes, 20, 30 more likely, but 15 minutes, we'll get it done. And I'm there just walking them through it. Now I'm on my phone working on other stuff, while we're doing it. But the end of that call comes, we're getting that email. They're going to get that email for the drug test. And then it's, hey man, when can you take this? Take this tomorrow, right? Can you go tomorrow? These are listed places. When can you go? Oh no, I'm working tomorrow. Okay. Can you go the next day? So it's just motivating them. If you had a phenomenal conversation with these people and you want them be on your team, don't lose them, because I guarantee you're not the only person that's recruiting this driver. They're talking to you, they're talking to other people as well.
Yeah. And it's just like in the sales world. I feel like a lot of contractors probably have varying levels of sales experience, but at some point they've probably had a little bit of experience with it. And there's always like, get it done, move through the process. Don't give them time to have buyer's remorse. Same kind of thing. I often refer to the recruiting process as actually a sales process, because in today's driving market, you're selling them on why they want to drive with you. You're not like God's gift to them that finally you have a job available. It's like, no, they have 100 jobs available for them. You just need to sell them on why they want to drive with you and why you're awesome, what sets you apart, like you said earlier.
One thing we have the ability, I know what truckers do. Like, we have another trucking company that we run. Darius, he handles that. We do Amazon, we do reefers, we're in it. And I know what those drivers do. And it's easily for me to compare those jobs, which is a pretty decent driving job, and comparatively, but I can compare it to FedEx. So I know mentally, I'm like, I know what the difference is. So as a community, we want to push FedEx driving job. This isn't a trucking company. Like, you own a FedEx business. You don't own trucking. You own diet trucking, right? Trucking light is what we're doing here. And for the drivers, it's the same thing. Like, they're very unique driving jobs within FedEx that don't exist anywhere else. For all the complaining we do about FedEx and this and that, their network is extremely efficient in moving freight through their network. And if they don't have freight, you probably have to take empty somewhere, right? How many runs do we have where you're taking load somewhere and they're paying you full rate to bring empty loads back? So for us as contractors, how do we highlight that to drivers? That's the sales job right there. It's us individually for our own companies, but us as a community, we need to sell outward. Why does a new contractor, a new driver, 6 months out of school, FedEx approved school, want to come to us? Well, it's because it's the best job for you. That's what you're looking for.
Very good. I have had other contractors tell me as well. It's like the trailer, 40-foot trailer or whatever it is, might have 3 boxes in it, but that trailer still got to go. And that's another selling point. It's like to sell those drivers on consistency and steady pay. So that's, in my research and in doing lead generation, that's what a lot of drivers want, is they want consistency, steadiness, and good home time, a good work-life balance. And
especially the younger guys. You want to hire somebody, in that, 25 to probably even 35, 40 age range. You're pushing their home time, their work-life balance. They all have something they're doing on the side. They all have a hustle. They're all making it big elsewhere. And it might very well be their own trucking company. And your job is to nurture that. Hey, come on, work with me. You're going to get paid well, and you're going to have lots of time to focus on what that is. And that's part of engaging them in that initial conversation. Every millennial truck driver has a hustle, has something they're doing. They're not a professional truck driver. And they're not. There's something else to do, and they have a dream. Nurture that dream and use your FedEx job and how it's different than everybody else to entice them of why this is the right business for them, the right trucking job for them.
Very interesting. I could see a lot of contractors taking that advice and saying, but we're gonna like have worse retention. They're only gonna stay for a year if we're nurturing their dream.
You
But
send them all to me. I'll take them for a year.
yeah,
I'll run them for a really good year. That's fine.
yeah,
Just how I don't need. I have phenomenal drivers that have been with me since the beginning of when I started. And they've been back and forth, they've gone, they've come back, and we're better for it. But we have drivers that come and they work with us for 6 months to a year, a FedEx peak season. We get lots of points, lots of FedEx bonus peak miles off of them. And we use those points to upgrade runs. And afterwards, if they go decide that there's another opportunity out there that's better for them, phenomenal. Lots of times they end up coming back. And they're welcome, as long as they leave on good terms, right? But it's not, I'm not looking for a guy, and this is my opinion, it's only my opinion. I don't need somebody that's going to be around forever. I'm not even looking for somebody that's going to be around forever. Give me a year is a phenomenal amount of time for me to run a truck and continue to build my FedEx business with that driver. And you know what? When it's time for them to go on, I'm going to have somebody else that is going to be just as good in that truck. And if the first person comes back, I always make room for them. So we always have the opportunity to bring guys back who want to test the waters, see that the grass isn't as green, come back to us at FedEx.
Yeah, I think that's a very unique perspective compared to some contractors that I talk about. But if you think about it in the terms of money, I did another video with another contractor and we talked about how much is an empty truck costing you. And the number that we came to was $7,200 because it was $4,000 in real costs. And then if the truck is empty, you're missing out on $3,200 a month of opportunity cost, right? But let's just take that $3,200 for this example though. If they're only going to run for 6 months and you might think, I don't even want somebody that's only going to be here for 6 months. That's still over $18,000 profit that you can make in that time. And if that driver costed you, a lot of my clients that I work with have cost per hires anywhere from $500 to $2,000. You invested $500 to $2,000 cost per hire to make $18,000 in 6 months. Like that's still okay. Although like dream condition, yeah, they stay with you for 20 years. That's not going to happen every time anyway. So I like that. Nurture their dream anyway, because may as well.
So what you just spoke about, I'm fine with that model, and we've gotten very comfortable with it. And I think it's, it's been a lot of years. And early on, of course, we wanted guys who are going to stick around forever. And we talked about, that retention and how do we get them to stay? How do we convince them to stay? And now it's being comfortable with offering a very good wage for a very good job, selecting the right FedEx runs that these drivers want to stick around in, but someone's always going to have a better opportunity. Someone's always going to be willing to pay them more money, and that's fine. Like, go take that money. Like, whatever is best for you, I'm fine. Like, go. I want what's best for my drivers, and I'm comfortable now that I have you kicking me leads, right? I'm going to get that truck position filled. And if you give me 2 weeks, then I'll have that position filled within those 2 weeks. It's just the confidence that I have in being able to recruit the areas and knowing the areas and only going to the areas where I can recruit really well.
Yeah.
There's certain markets that no, I'm not going there because I don't have that confidence there.
Yeah. Interesting. Another question, in an earlier conversation, you referenced a little bit kind of the difference between Indeed and job board leads versus the social recruiting that I'm providing for you. What is the difference in experience, in your experience with those leads, and how do you handle them differently? Do you talk to them differently? What do you do differently between job board leads or social recruiting leads?
Everybody uses Indeed, right? And can I be honest with you, with your fan base?
Yep.
Indeed sucks. I don't have anything nice to say about Indeed. They've been good. They've been good to us. They continue to change the way that it's so frustrating, right? The website's not that good. The way that it works, like now, and I'm bougie, right? When I get emails from Indeed, like I can't even click on the phone number. You have to like call through the app, and you have to be in front of a computer, and the phone doesn't work.
You have to click like 14 buttons to find their phone number. It's ridiculous.
God. So it's Indeed, right? And somebody like you and some really smart people need to get together and just make another recruiting site that's just for drivers, right? And I know people are trying to do it, but no one's done it well enough yet. So that for somebody who wants to just call and maybe doesn't have the money to afford, they can go to a website their drivers know to go to, because that's really, why do we go to Indeed? Because that's where drivers think they need to go to in order to push their resumes on. And so all that, let me step off my soapbox for a minute. The leads with Indeed, they're not hot. You have to like really set aside some time to make those calls, shoot text, emails. Hey, Mr. Driver, will you please talk to me? Please, I got a great position for you. And you're texting them like, I'm free at this time. And they're just not that interested in getting a job. At least it seems like to me in the areas that I really have to recruit for truck drivers. Now, your leads, they show up, I get a text and I get an email, and I know that driver is ready to go. He's ready to have a conversation. He or she's ready to have a conversation right then. So I click the phone, I don't even have to type in the phone number, right? I just click on the link, it calls them from my phone, and they answer the phone. I mean, 93% of the time they answer the phone if you call them as soon as you get the email, and it's fresh in their brain. They just filled out this link. They just did whatever it is you do with them. I probably should be better at like exactly what it is. I don't know, just take advantage of it, the fruit. And it's a hot lead. It's the hottest of leads. And so for that's what separates you, I think, from your competition. And when I think of your competition, I don't think of maybe other recruiters that are kind of going through the whole process. I think your versus Indeed, and the money that I've spent with Indeed over the years, it's insanity. It's like, oh, I only have to spend $5 a resume or $50 a resume in certain markets, because that's another thing they do, right? They determine how successful you're going to be based on money you provide. And the number of times I've paid for a resume for a driver who doesn't have a CDLA scores, it's probably in the hundreds of times. And then to get that money back, you got to send an email. It's complicated, right? And I think they make it that way for a reason. So it's the hotness of the leads. It's the ability of it's knowing the drivers are going to answer the phone, and that you can have a conversation right there, and they're engaged. And it's always a better conversation. They're opening to hearing what you have at that exact point.
Interesting. Do you open up the conversation differently depending on where the lead comes from, or do you still just open up the conversation the same way? You just find that the conversation on the other side is better from social recruiting?
I might. The only time, I think what depends on my conversation is the location I'm hiring for. And it's based on my experience with those drivers in that location. And we recruit very different, wide-ranging parts of the country. So you're just going to have some people want to have longer conversations to get more in depth. Certain people, so Woodbridge market, there's New York City drivers that are like, you got 30 seconds. Like, tell me exactly what it is you have and go. So I know what to expect, I think, when I pick that phone, regardless of where the number's coming from.
Okay, that's interesting. I've always wondered that, because I will say that the leads do come in from a little bit of a different mentality. If they're on Indeed, they are actively looking for a job. Now, that has benefits and drawbacks in my mind, because if they're actively looking for a job, they might try to go through the process faster. But if they're looking for a job, they probably also just went through the list of Indeed that has 100 postings in a row, and they just clicked apply.
Oh, what job are you? Yeah, what job are you? You get the email. It's like, oh, who are you again?
Yeah.
You just what? So yes.
Whereas with social recruiting, we're putting it in front of them. They weren't looking for a job. They were scrolling Facebook. They were doing whatever they do, and they just came across a better opportunity. And so they come in from a different mentality. But I've wondered if, as the recruiter, if you're taking a different approach to that. So
since you've been doing this, have you adjusted maybe the places that you're going based on success rates of your clients?
We have, meaning the places that we're posting the ads, or geographical locations?
I would say, let's start with the area that you are, like the social media network that you're using.
Yeah, so we primarily get leads on Facebook, and we have tried different things. We've tried TikTok, we've tried Google, we've tried some other things. Nothing has been as fruitful as Facebook, so we have stuck to Facebook. We're continuing to research other things and find other things, but for now, Facebook has still been the best.
Okay.
As far as the second part of that, geographical locations, I mean, we go where people need it, right? You guys got to be close to your terminal or your hub or whatever. And so that's where we go. However, I do have a lot of data. We've generated over 45,000 leads. We do have a lot of data on what's easier, what's harder. And if people have the flexibility, then we can.
And that's what I wonder. So if I'm recruiting a team out of, let's say, Dallas, Texas, will you go into other parts of Dallas that's in a regional where drivers could drive there? Are you just focusing on that particular area? And I mean specifically for teams, Atlanta teams, right? Are you going to Alabama looking for Atlanta teams?
Right. Generally, it depends on the contractor, but generally we will do within 100 miles of the city, just because that's, they can drive 100 miles once or twice a week because they come in once and they go back home once, right? That's the feedback we've gotten from contractors. But there are other contractors that are willing to get flexible and say, we go from Atlanta to Alabama often. So let's recruit drivers out of Alabama because then we can just have them on the other end of our run, right? Some contractors get creative. I don't know the specifics, but I know that's a little bit more difficult in the FedEx network to do that sometimes.
Sometimes it's a beggars can't be choosers mentality. If your drivers have to come in, you have to let them take the truck to another place to get that run done. It all depends on what that market looks like when you're trying to recruit for it and how many drivers are available to take that run. So the truck is not sitting costing you $7,000 a month plus.
Yeah, and that's another thing I always try to help people understand is like an empty truck is costing you $7,000 a month. So even if you have to invest $5,000 to get a driver, it's still worth it because in 3 weeks you'll make that money back. Then week 4 you make your profit. If they only stay for a month, then hopefully they'll stay for 6 months, a year, 5 years, whatever the case may be.
Yep. I agree.
Last question for you. So Rick is a FedEx contractor in I don't even know how many locations, but then you also have a business, Linehaul Solutions, where you help people get started. Yep. Tell us a little bit about what you do at Linehaul Solutions and how you help people.
So Linehaul Solutions, new startup, we're still out there trying to build. For about 6 months, I was brokering runs quietly under a pseudonym for many years. And a lot of it was our business that I was selling, that I didn't have the best conversations with the other people who were selling the runs. So it's just like, I'll just do it as myself. And then that came to other people in the terminals. Oh, can you sell my runs for me? And kind of putting it together. And then, it just kind of over the many years blossomed into Linehaul Solutions. And I wanted the opportunity to represent buyers. I saw a huge need for people coming into this space that had no trucking experience, but knew that FedEx Linehaul was a good place to park your money, decent margins, low involvement perceptionally, whether it's accurate or not, depends on a lot of factors, but perceptionally, I can make, 30% margins and only spend 30 minutes of my, time a week. We talk through that. So I wanted to help them. The process to become a contractor is tedious. Like if you've ever done it before, it's just, there's so much to do and prepare for, and there's not a manual. There's nobody helping you from the FedEx side of it. The managers are great, but they're not sitting down with you, walking you through the process. The sellers, I have great sellers, but you know what? They don't have the hours and hours needed to spend with a new contractor. And so we wanted to come in and help them through the process and really ensure success from the day one. And now we've offered a dispatching service with that. Not because I kind of loved, I'm very honest, like I didn't love the idea of dispatching. It just seemed like something we did really good because I created a business for my own, a dispatching service to deal with everything. I didn't feel like dealing with it. I don't want to be up at night, 3 a.m, dealing with calls. I don't want to have to call the terminal constantly in multiple places. I don't want to have to I just didn't want to do certain things. Nobody wants to do IVMR reporting. That sucks. So I just created, I hired people to do this for me, and I had phenomenal people that over the years got really good at this. And it just made sense for us to offer this service to people that want to come in and not be as involved, especially at night. So Linehaul Solutions, those are the two main things we're doing. We want to bring on the new contractors. We want to make sure they're extremely successful in a very transparent, I don't, step on any toes, but we want to be very honest with them about the expectations, what they're buying, how to be successful. And then we're also offering some dispatching services, pushing unassigned runs through the network, things that we can do probably significantly better than what the contractor could do on their own, especially if they're brand new.
Yeah. I remember the first time I talked to you, I did think it was very unique that you are on the buyer side, helping them succeed. Because there's plenty of brokers out there that will help the seller, right? But they don't think about the buyer. They don't, and maybe they don't even think about the seller. I don't know. I haven't worked with them.
It's when you buy a house. When I bought a house, the selling broker did a really good job of taking care of the person selling me the house. And I had a real estate agent that represented me that was pointing out all the things that I needed to know and helping me and holding me in my hand through that process. And I feel like with these FedEx route sales purchases that go into the millions of dollars, that anybody buying a FedEx business needs to have representation completely independent from the person who's trying to sell them that business. And if it's not, I feel like it's a conflict of interest.
It's very logical. Well, Rick, how can people get in touch with you? What's the best way if they're interested in your services? Have any other questions for you?
So rick@linehaul.info, email, I check it probably 9 times a minute right now. And then our website is also linehaul.info. That's a really good start for anybody. We put out a lot of videos, a lot of Instagram memes. We're having a lot of fun with it. But the whole point is that anybody who's interested in becoming a Linehaul contractor, go through our stuff and you'll have a very good idea of what services we provide. And if not, just what the expectations could be from a contractor, tips on how to be successful. And we're just going to continue to grow that as time goes by.
Very cool. And I know I see your posts or comments in the Facebook group all the time that you really give people the truth. You don't try to hide anything, just like you talked about here with, you want to be honest with your drivers. It's the same thing with that you're doing with contractors considering getting into the business or whatever. And obviously you're a fan of being a FedEx contractor. You are a FedEx contractor, but you also know the challenges that come with it, and you're not going to try to put sparkles on it.
100%. FedEx has taken very good care of myself, my family over the years, my partners. We have had so many challenges, but they pale in comparison to all the successes and the benefits that we've got out of being FedEx contractors. And we figured out how to do it, the right way. And that's not even a generic. It's not trying to skirt the system. You have that TSPA, it, and you flirt with that line every now and again, but FedEx is big brother, and they will keep you in line. And as long as you are maintaining the needs and focusing on the needs of FedEx as a whole and individually, that hub manager, that station manager, you can be very successful. And we obviously, like Mitch, like you guys, we would love to help you with that process.
Yes. Well, I appreciate it, Rick. Make sure people reach out to him. You can reach out to us if you need help with recruiting, lead generation. But I appreciate your time today, Rick.
Yeah. And to finish, to say it again, like, we've had such incredible success with your leads. It's greatly appreciated. Thank you. And obviously, like, how many times a month am I calling you for a new location? Hey, juice these leads up. We're ready to go. So there's going to be a lot more to come.
Awesome. Appreciate it, Rick.
All right, man. Thanks. Talk soon.